Welcome back to our second video blog in our series for Cybersecurity Month. I'm here today with Bryan Gembusia. And Bryan, to start off, could you tell us a little bit about your background and your experience in the IT world?
I was part of two internet startups. The first one was called Pest Patrol. And that company was started to remove the things off a computer that the antivirus companies were ignoring. So in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was no catching of Trojans, spyware, adware, the things that made your browser pop up extra windows. So the bad guys of the internet, or the bad guys out there, started to figure out that they could take advantage of people's computers, even though they weren't making a so-called virus. So Pest Patrol was started to remove these things, and then in August of 2004, that company got sold to Computer Associates. The virus company started to realize that, hey, we better pay attention to this stuff. After that, 15 of the guys that started Pest Patrol got together, and we started a company called Exploit Prevention Labs. We figured rather than wait and take stuff off of the computer or off the hard drive, we would watch the data as it comes down the wire and scan it live in memory before it ever got written to the disk. And if there was something bad there, we could throw it out before it ever got written to the computer. And that technology was sold in 2007 to AVG, the popular antivirus company. So luckily, I got exposed to all kinds of security threats, all kinds of bad software, all kinds of malware. I got to see servers, our company servers would get attacked from different countries, from different places within our own country, because all the bad guys started to see that we could stop them from taking advantage of people, and they got mad at us, and of course they wanted to take us out of service. So that developed into the business I'm in today, which is primarily security auditing and infrastructure, making sure that systems as a whole stay safe from the bad guys, not only from the outside, but also from the inside.
Okay, great. One of the reasons we have you here today is to talk about the business and industry sector and why it's important for businesses of all sizes to take steps to ensure that they're secure and that their networks and their systems are secure. Could you elaborate on why it's important?
There are a whole bunch of reasons, but first and foremost, every business pays their employees. And if you pay your employees, you have enough identity information that an ID thief would look at it as a gold mine. You have addresses, home addresses, social security numbers, you have birth dates, you have all the things required for a bad guy to steal an identity. And that's just from payroll. As we move forward through the different healthcare systems, you tend to get more information that they'll need for healthcare or electronic processing of healthcare records. And many, many times these systems will have things like the mother's maiden name, anniversary dates, spouse's birth date. And again, it makes the picture deeper and deeper and deeper, because if I have that information, not only can I commit identity theft, but I might be able to reset a Hotmail password, reset a Facebook password with something as simple as wife's maiden name and a birthday. So I've had businesses say, well, we don't have anything that the public can't see. If you pay your employees, you have information that you certainly don't want out there.
That's really compelling, because I think that's a piece that a lot of employers don't think about. It's more about how will it impact their business and the function of their business and not their employees. So that's great. If you pay your employees, you need to be cyber secure. What are some of the risks that businesses, beyond the employee aspect, that they may face if they don't take the necessary steps to protect themselves?
Well, there's a whole chain of events that would occur if you haven't taken the steps, and it's worse depending on what industry you're in. As an example, if you're in the financial industry, you could have FFIEC guidelines, FDIC for banks, NCUA for credit unions, SEC for stock traders, and all of those government agencies will issue their own fines and penalties beyond anything bad that would happen. So to walk you through a typical scenario, let's say that you're a day trading stock firm and you haven't taken the steps to protect yourselves. And by not taking the steps, I mean you don't do your monthly security patches, you haven't updated or kept antivirus on these machines, you haven't taken steps to protect your network with a firewall, with an intrusion protection device, and all of these types of systems, and someone gets in and steals your information. There's the business impact. are you going to want to do business with that company knowing that they didn't protect themselves and they allowed the information to get stolen? There's the financial impact, because now you're going to be required, obviously, by your customer base and maybe government regulators to take all the steps you should have taken anyway, and then there's fines. One of the earliest and largest credit card hacks before, let's say in the 2000s, when the bad guy industry for credit card theft started, was the TJ Maxx incident. They stole about 45 million credit cards, and to add insult to injury, after finding out about the crime, having to notify all these customers, the Federal Trade Commission stepped in and fined TJ Maxx $60 million on top of everything else they had to go through.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. A lot of businesses will argue that cybersecurity is an expensive thing, especially a lot of your small businesses and stuff like that. What are some inexpensive steps that businesses can take to protect themselves?
Number one is antivirus. You would be amazed at how many people don't spend the $30, $40, $50 a year to renew their antivirus. And that is the number one gateway in that I see, especially for smaller business. As it gets to be a larger company, obviously they've had IT people come in, or they've hired IT people, and they do a better job minding the store. But outdated antivirus would be number one, and then doing the monthly patches. The monthly patches don't cost a thing other than your time. But that fixes security vulnerabilities, and the antivirus protection is just an absolute must if you have a computer connected to anything in the world today. If it's not connected, it's not as vulnerable, but still you should have updated antivirus.
And that kind of hits on the point that you made, that $30 or $50 a year, as opposed to thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, if you are hacked or you do have a cybersecurity breach, that it could cost you in the long run. So it's worth it.
Even if it were your personal computer, you have to look at the thousands or hundreds of hours or thousands of dollars of man hours just to restore your identity if someone stole it.
Right.
There's a lot of costs associated with not taking that little bit of upfront cost to protect yourself.
Now, can you elaborate on why it's important for businesses to train their staff on cybersecurity? I know we do a lot of that at the county, making sure our staff know the appropriate things. Why is that such an important piece of the cybersecurity puzzle?
Because the bad guys have moved on from always trying to take technical advantage of a situation. There's always going to be someone smarter than all of us. There's going to be a technician or a programmer who finds ways to fool the machine. But the bad guys have figured out that if you fool the people, you don't need to be a technical superhero. If you can fool a poorly educated employee, or fool a place that has poorly instituted procedures or processes, you don't need anything else. A great example of that is I've seen people go through intricate technical details to try and break somebody's password, where sometimes you can pick up the phone and ask them, and they'll give it to you. So it's very important to make sure, obviously, your employees are educated to not give those things out, because we've gotten so high tech that we forget about old tech. Just pick up the phone and ask.
That's great. That's a good tip. One of the topics we've been covering this week is identity theft, and you hit on this a little bit with the credit card issues, but businesses obviously need to be considering their customers and their customers' information. Touch on that a little bit further about why cybersecurity is important for your business and your customer base, and why that customers knowing you're secure is an important thing.
First off, nobody wants to do business with someone that they know is insecure. Nobody wants to trust any part of their information, business to business, person to business. If you know that this vendor doesn't, if they have poor customer service, you're not going to want to do business with them. This is just a further extension of the same. Poor customer service would include they don't protect their customer information. But there's further reaching implications. You can have someone that maybe has sensitive information. I'll give you a great example. Let's say there's a company that provides specialized services to military installations, and their customer database has physical addresses. And these physical addresses are such that the federal government, are based on our country's national security, would not want these physical addresses out. If you don't have that information protected, even though it's only going to be in your organization, an employee, a hacker, someone who took advantage of a computer system, could get this information, and then they would have all the physical addresses to certain military installations, let's say certain guard shacks, or certain places that don't show up on Google Maps.
Right.
And again, because of national security, that's just a great example of the kind of information someone would be looking for that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get if those steps weren't taken to protect that information.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes great sense. Before we started our interview today, you were telling us about how the face of the bad stranger that we grew up thinking of has changed. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. The analogy we like to use is when we were kids, we were told not to talk to strangers. And we all, I believe, were told that the stranger looks like a big, dark character, or else we were allowed to form this ourselves. But I would say that if you went to kids today and asked them to draw the picture of the stranger, or us as adults that we saw as a child, it was always this big, dark, evil-looking character. Probably some of it comes from Hollywood, some of it we've drawn from different places throughout our lives. But it was never the mailman. It was never the UPS man. It certainly wasn't the PP&L man. It certainly wasn't, these regular people that we see in our daily lives. And unfortunately, in the IT security field and in the identity theft arena, we don't protect against the right person. Because the person that's going to steal that information isn't going to be this dark, evil figure that we've concocted in our heads. It's going to be someone that looks normal, talks normal, well-dressed, has proper identification, but unfortunately doesn't belong there. So, what do? Ronald Reagan said it best: trust but verify. You can talk to someone and you can trust the information they say, but before you grant them access, add that extra verification step and make no exceptions. And unfortunately, the bad guys know to draw on our human weaknesses. They're not going to come to you and say, I'm here to fix the phone system, and if you don't let me in, your phones won't work. They're going to come in and say, I'm here from the fire department, and if you don't let me in, there could be a fire. Or they're going to come in with a walker or a wheelchair and act like they need additional assistance. And you're going to open those doors for them, and you're going to feel bad about doing that extra verification step because they know that you're more likely to fail your verification process if we make it that you're uncomfortable when you have to do it.
Exactly. That's another great point. You're full of great points today. This is very eye-opening. One of the things that I think, if I could have you touch on as well, a lot of people, when they think cybersecurity, they think somebody sitting remotely behind a computer as well and never seeing that person. But we are seeing a lot of folks getting into facilities dressed as the mailman, dressed as the UPS man, and bringing in devices and finding ways to get on our computers without us even knowing it. So, I mean, elaborate on that. You're seeing an increase in that and that whole verification piece, and I mean, it's growing in a sense, right?
It certainly is. Devices are coming in all the time, and people don't realize how easy it is to drop a device, leave a device behind that could do harm, whether through electronic countermeasures or actually plug it in and connect it to your network. I'm going to put you on the spot, and I apologize because I know we have this on video, but I brought a phone in with me today. Do you know that this is really a phone?
No, I did not.
And how many places did we walk in this building that I couldn't have dropped this and left this behind to do bad things on the network?
We've walked through several.
So
it's that simple.
It's that simple. And the devices that we're making today, or the bad guys and the good guys are making to test the process, are this size or smaller, or look like things. Imagine if I showed you earlier a device that could be plugged into your network and look like a power strip and look like an air freshener. But imagine it's something that we could stick into a telephone. And rather than doing it to one phone that we break into a building, we, or let's say the bad guys or we the good guys as auditors, we go to the vendor who makes the phones and we poison the system there. So now when you, the county, buy all the phones, you don't know that we already have this device built into it. So you've got to be very, very careful. One of the things we say is know your baseline. Your county IMTO department has a very good idea of what normal looks like, and they alert very quickly when something abnormal shows up. So that if there was something built into this device, they're going to see it because of the actions the device takes when it connects to your network.
Good to know. And Bryan's a trustworthy character, so we trust his phone. Last thing we're going to end with today is, well, first off, thank you for coming in and speaking to us. I've learned a lot. I hope everybody has learned a lot. What is the number one thing that you would stress to folks about cybersecurity? If you could tell them one thing, what would it be?
When in doubt, don't click. We say this all the time, but our users, ourselves included, we are horrendous for blowing past the warning messages, blowing past just general warnings. When the computer does something we don't expect it to do, ignoring it. Normally, when there's a break-in or there's something wrong, there are signs. And if we're busy, especially in today's world, we tend to go around the roadblock or just ignore it because we're after the information. We've created a world of everything's here right now. And whenever something impedes that process, we want to get around it as fast as possible. So when in doubt, don't click. Don't just blow past the message. Don't just ignore the signs. Ask questions. Again, it goes back to the trust and verify.
All right. That's great, and that's pretty simple. Thank you again to Bryan for coming out, and we'll be back next week for the third part of our video blog series for Cybersecurity Month.
Thank you.
Thank you.